coming tonight. My name is Terry McAfee. I'm the current Council PTA President. I also would like to thank Michelle Goodwin as well as volunteers from the Connecticut Civic Club. Did I get that right? All right. As well, of course, our candidates for Board of Ed Trustees. Eileen Panico, Mark Warshaw, Robert Hochstein, and Nick Ferriaoli.
Ferriaoli.
Darn it!
He was supposed to go first.
Okay. So anyway, I'm gonna let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Let's do that first. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'm going to turn the floor over to Ms. Goodwin, who will announce the format of tonight's evening, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. So, hello everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. As Ms. McAfee said, on behalf of PTA Council, and of course I want to compliment these young people here on behalf of myself and my co-advisor, Ms. Gina Semp, the Connecticut Civic, for always volunteering. Tonight we're here to hear from our candidates who are currently running for Board of Education. These individuals will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves in a moment. Each question that you've asked and submitted on a card, they will have 1 minute to respond. They will go in order from left to right, and then of course, after they have an introduction, and after they've answered their first question, it will not be 1, 2, 3, 4, then it will be 2, 3, 4, 1, in fairness, okay? If you have a question, you may still submit cards for the event. And without further ado, I hope I make Mr. Trupia proud. We're about to begin. You guys ready? Okay, first of all, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Pat.
Thanks, Pat. Hello, Mrs. Panico.
Hi.
You have 2 minutes
2 minutes.
to share with us why you're running for the Board of Education.
All right.
Brief
All right.
it.
Well, I take notes on everything, so I have all my notes. About 22 years ago, my husband and I chose to live in this district after researching many districts to raise our children. I was pregnant with my first. We moved here in 1996, I want to say. And when my children reached the age of 4, we enrolled them in Connecticut Youth Soccer League. We also coached T-ball for St. Joseph's. For a very short period of time, we became involved in the CYA. I've also always supported the PTA and became a member as my children reached school age. I was very active when my oldest, who is now 21, was in the 5th grade. I was treasurer of Duffield, council representative. I attended council meetings and reported back. I became council president. I was also the Board of Ed alternate. I attended many Board of Ed meetings and reported back to the units. I continued on through RMS and the high school with active participation and volunteerism for many different events and committees. For my council PTA presidency, I was there for 2 terms. Our mission at that time was to create unity in the community. I'm an active member of the Ronkonkoma Civic Association. I became treasurer there about 4 years ago, served 3 years as the vice president, and today I'm officially the president of the Ronkonkoma Civic Association. I'm an active member. I support all groups in every way that I can. I still go back to any school that asks me to volunteer. I love the kids. I love hanging out with them. I love doing stuff with them. I'm an outspoken opt-out parent. I'm just an outspoken parent as it is, but I'm outspoken for opt-out. I believe that we need to do what's best for all children. I attended over 100 Board of Ed meetings in the past 5 or 6 years. I've been consistent in my views about this district. I fully support our teachers in this district, and most put the children first. I've showed support for our teachers on many. I'm done?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Sorry, I'll finish.
Thank you, Mrs. Panico.
2 minutes goes quick.
Yeah, it's quick.
Hello, Mr. Warshaw.
Do I have to stand or can I sit?
No.
You can sit, whatever makes you comfortable.
Yeah, I'm comfortable here like this.
Please share with us a little bit about yourself
Okay.
and why you're running for the Board of Education. Go ahead.
Hello, everybody. My name's Mark Warshaw. I'm a resident of the district for over 20 years now. Most of you know me. A lot of people know me because I've been on the football field a lot. And I've been coaching for years, which has been very, very gratifying. And I've actually enjoyed it so much. I love the children in the district. And I love giving. As a resident for over 23 years, I always felt it was important to give back. I have volunteered for many different organizations. It was gratifying, like I said, on so many levels. I've faced many obstacles in my life. One of them, which was losing my son, and I felt it necessary and beneficial to use those emotions and reflect it for a positive outcome in life. With my personal experiences, I feel I can make a great trustee for the Board of Education and be a positive influence for the children, okay, for everybody in the district, and I can make people bond, and that's my strong forte. So I will always be transparent. I'll always listen. That's one thing I can tell you that much. My heart is my word, and I will do that at all times. So I just want you to know, I'll never assume, and I will do the best I can if I'm lucky enough and fortunate enough to be elected. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Warshaw. Mr. Hochstein?
Hi, my name is Robert Hochstein. If you don't know me, you may not have seen me around for the last year or two. I retired from the district. I was the director of facilities.
Mr. Hochstein, would you be able to speak up a little bit louder? I apologize, I didn't hear that.
Okay. So I was the director of facilities for the district for 14 years, and I was an employee of the district for 23. In those years, I was also the district health and safety coordinator. I've attended many board meetings through that position. I'm familiar with the inner workings of the district. I've dealt with faculty, staff, and unions over the years. And I'd like to make a difference in the Connecticut School District for betterment for the kids and for the community.
Thank you. Hi, Mr. Ferriaoli.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming out. My name is Nick Ferriaoli. I am the current Vice President of the school board. I've been on the school board for the past 3 years. Along with my fellow school board members, I think we've created a tremendous environment here at Connecticut. The administration has been phenomenal. We've added tons of programs. We've added clubs to high school, thanks in part to Mylan sitting over there. She's been a big advocate for it. We were able to, after 3 years of pushing, when Mr. Amarando and I got on the board, we initially talked about a 0% increase. We are going to have a 0% tax levy increase this year. We finally got that pushed through. So I've really enjoyed being a part of what goes on here in Connecticut. I'm a lifelong educator. I've been a teacher in Brentwood for the past 19 years. It's what I do. My wife is a teacher as well. And I really enjoy seeing the kids of Connecticut succeed. There are tremendous programs here and tremendous ways for them to succeed. I am honored and humbled to be a part of that for the last 3 years, and I'd really like to continue that. I will also continue working with our legislators, which I've done for the past 3 years, and trying to get some of this horrible testing and APPR uncoupled from our school scores and our teacher scores, because I don't believe in that. I do believe in testing, but it needs to be appropriate. It needs to be grade level for our kids, and unfortunately what they're doing is not. Other than that, I really, really hope that you have the opportunity to go out and vote for the budget, because that's really what the most important thing is. And I look forward to hopefully working with your children for the next 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ferriaoli. Hello, Mrs. Panico.
I thought we wanted him there.
No, now you get the first question.
Oh, okay.
All right. So you have 1 minute to respond.
Oh, that's quick.
Okay.
You know I like to talk.
Are you? Yes, sir. Okay. Are you easily influenced by small groups more than interested in what the majority of stakeholders and taxpayers think?
No, I am not. I believe that I have promoted transparency by videotaping all the board meetings to get to the wider audience, to get to everybody in the district. I believe that everyone's opinion counts. I believe that we should weigh both sides of an issue, maybe 3 sides, 4 sides, whatever sides there are. I don't believe in any one special interest group, and we're all special interest groups, parents, teachers. We all have our own interests, but I believe in weighing the options of everyone and doing the right thing for the kids.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw, would you like me to repeat the question?
Absolutely.
Okay. Are you easily influenced by small groups more than interested in what the majority of stakeholders and taxpayers think?
I'm not, really I have my own mind and I basically think on my own and I get input from different groups, but I'm not at all my influence. I'm basically a man that makes a decision when he thinks is right. I stand for what's right and what I believe is right, and I will continue to do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hochstein, would you like me to repeat the question? Are you easily influenced by small groups more than interested in what the majority of stakeholders and taxpayers think?
Actually, I'd be interested in what everybody has to say. We all live here. We all try and work together. About that.
Sorry about that.
I believe in transparency and honesty. And like I said before, I would listen to all groups, not one group in particular.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Ferriaoli?
Good.
You're good, you know the question. Thank
Right
you.
now, yeah. Absolutely not. It's really important when you're on the board that you seek out other people. You're going to get lots of information, bits and pieces that are going to come to you from different avenues, and you have to make judgments, but you also want to include as many stakeholders as possible. So you have to really try to sometimes reach out to other groups that you may not necessarily run in those circles. People will approach you. People you know from different groups will always approach you. Those are the easy ones to find. So it's your job as a board member, and I try to do it as much as I can to seek out other groups because it's important what everybody has to say.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw, you'll now be the first to respond to the second question. What is your opinion on Common Core and state assessments?
I'm against Common Core. It really happened too fast. It was hard to control and really caused a lot of chaos in our district. It was also great because it cost, not good because it cost the district, as there was a need to train teachers, buy new educational materials, and that aligned with the Common Core standards. So it was really, I'm not for it.
Thank you. Mr. Hochstein, would you like me to repeat the question?
Sure.
Okay. What is your opinion on Common Core and state assessments?
Well, I don't agree with Common Core. I don't think I don't think it helps the students. I don't think it helps the teachers. I think it's a detriment to the district, and I think it should be changed.
Thank you. Mr. Ferriaoli, would you like me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay.
I'm not sure that the question is actually accurate because there is no more Common Core. We have the next generation standards now, which are basically a rewrite of those. They're not much different, having analyzed both sets. I am not in favor of either one of them. I think they have taken our schools down a path which we should not have to go down. And as far as high-stakes testing, anybody who knows me knows that for the past 4 or 5 years, I have been very vocal about high-stakes testing. I do not believe in them. I have pushed for, since getting on the board, and even before getting on the board, changing from our New York State modules to having math, books in place, because that was all part of the high-stakes testing. Also pushed for letters to go out so parents were informed of their rights, that they have the right to refuse, which is actually the correct term. And also the robocalls and stuff you've been hearing are all part of that push. So I'm very happy with what I've accomplished on that agenda the last 3 years.
Excellent. Mrs. Panico, would you like me to repeat the question?
No.
Okay.
The next generation learning standards are just putting lipstick on a pig and calling it pretty. It's still not pretty. It's not good for kids. It's really not. It's the standards, everybody wants our children to achieve and do the best that they can. This is not the way they do it. We've spent thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars on writing curriculum, and up until last year we were still using the modules as a primary resource. I recently asked at a Board of Ed meeting, and it was changed this year, that we are now using the standards that our teachers wrote. I believe that our teachers are the best people to assess our kids.
Excellent. Thank you. Mr. Hochstein.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Please note that I did not create these questions, for the record. What is your view on charging outside organizations for using school buildings, PTAs versus other organizations, weeknights versus weekends?
Well, I've always thought that outside groups should pay and be charged for use of the building. There are needs to pay for electricity, custodial, for supplies, security. And these things come into play when the building is open during the week. In the evening, you have a heavy custodial presence, and the building is lit. But on the weekends especially, you have an issue with what the cost is to the district.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ferriaoli?
I feel that it's a tough balance. We've discussed this many times on the board. You have all of your local groups that are using your schools. As long as they are locally based and they have a large percentage of their groups, I have no problem with not charging. I think where I would probably look towards possibly charging is like on a Sunday maybe when we don't have custodial help, but we don't have the buildings open. Maybe a policy like that, because we're now costing the district extra by opening the buildings on a date that they may not be open. But if the buildings are open, I believe that they should be used for the community.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mrs. Panico, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, I haven't. The PTAs do so much for our children. Without them, we wouldn't have half the cultural arts that we have, and especially at the elementary level. Charging the PTAs is a horrible, horrible practice that we should not be doing. For other groups, we had a policy in place that was, I think it was 60% had to be Connect Kids, and otherwise we would get charged. I had no issue with that. I believe that we pay taxes here. We should be able to use the buildings. I do agree with Mr. Ferriaoli that if it is on a Sunday, that perhaps they could pay a small fee, but when it's at nighttime and the custodians are already here, there should be no fee involved. We already pay taxes.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yeah, please.
What is your view on charging outside organizations for using school buildings? PTAs versus other organizations, weeknights versus weekends?
Well, as long as it's the community that we're in, it's our people, our district using, I think it's a great thing for them to use it. So I think they should be able to use it. I think it's beneficial for the kids, keeps them out of trouble, it keeps them at the school doing things. And I think that's very important. If there was a big proposal against it, I'd have to listen to it and hear why. But I think we should be able to use it for the groups in on a Sunday. I'd have to agree with both those colleagues there. If there is a cost effective, we'd have to try to make up the difference to cover what it costs, because we don't want to create large bills and have a conflict. So that's how I feel on that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Well,
Okay. Are you ready? Mr. Ferriaoli. Yeah, I know.
I don't know the question this time.
I'm going to tell you. How do you feel about arming our security guards?
Tough one. The elephant in the room. I believe I've said this before. I am not against arming our security guard. Let's put it this way: arming our security guards is a leading question. I am not against armed guards. I think that the most important thing, if we go in that direction and the community calls for it, is that we A, do our homework, B, we are able to choose who we are arming, because I think it's really important that not only our schools, our teachers, our educators, our children all are comfortable with this person. I'd like to see Suffolk County create a position that was in the civil service, which is what we've pushed for and we've spoken to a few people about. So that's really what I feel. But I am not against it if that's the way the community wants to go. I'd really not like to see it. I don't think it's appropriate in schools. It's unfortunate, but that's the way we're going, because people are doing some crazy things.
Thank you, sir. Excellent. Mrs. Panico?
Okay. So arming security guards has been a very hot topic. All of our guards here now are either active police officers or ex-police officers or active military or ex-military. I believe that they should be able to carry. They do their jobs. They're well trained. They're highly trained. There's a lot of ifs involved. We have to make sure that special education kids are very comfortable with these armed security guards. We have to speak to every stakeholder in the district and make them comfortable with it. We have to be able to vet these security guards. I believe that there should be mental health screening. There's a lot of ifs that go with it, but I do believe in arming our security guards to keep our children safe.
Thank you, Mrs. Panico. Mr. Warshaw, would you like me to repeat the question?
no, I think I have this one.
Okay.
I'm actually against armed security. I'm a firm believer in it would make the environment for the children a little tense, and they would feel uncomfortable. I think they would have a tough time adapting to it. So I think we overreact, not that we're overreacting, I think what's happened in the world is a tragedy. But I think we have a great security system here. And if I was forced, or people were so much for armed security,
Yes.
I would probably have to investigate it, and I would definitely look into who our security is, do a full background check, and I would really walk around and get together with administration and really investigate a lot in what's being done. Because you really have to look into that. Just because there are schools that had armed security guards and it didn't work out. So I'm against it, but if talked into it, I can be persuaded. But as of now, I'm more of a love kind of guy.
Mr. Hochstein.
Against armed security guards in the buildings. I think, as my colleagues have said, it creates an atmosphere that I don't think is comfortable for the students and for some of the staff and faculty. There are other things that we can do security-wise. I know ConnectWatt has a great security system in place, but there are always flaws, there are always things that you can fix. And I think you should look into that more before they move into armed security.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Panico. How many kids will you have in the ConnectWatt School District in the year 2018-2019?
My baby is graduating in June. I will have no kids in the district. However, my daughter does hang out with younger children. I have a connection to many of the civic kids because I volunteer a lot with all the kids, and I still believe in all the children. I have always fought for other children, not just my own. As a matter of fact, I've really fought for other children before I fought for my own. So for me, it is all about the kids. It will always be all about the kids, and I'll always be here fighting for the kids, whether I get elected or not.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw?
Yeah, you mean how many kids I have in right now or after this year?
It says in the 2018-2019 school year, how many children will you have in the ConnectWatt Central School District? So next school year.
Next school year?
Yes.
Okay. I will have no kids in this school, but I will always be there for children. That's just what I am. That's what I'm about. You can come and ask me anytime. I'll look at kids in the face. I will give them pure honesty. Sometimes they won't like it, but one thing they're going to get from me is the truth. And I will make sure that they know I'm on their side to help them at all causes.
Thank you. Mr. Hochstein?
I do not have kids, I will not have kids in the district for next year. I have had 3 children go through the district from elementary to high school graduates, 2 grandchildren that have gone through the district from elementary to high school graduates and on to college. But at this time, I don't see me having any children in the district next year.
Thank you, sir.
No, thank God.
I will have a 7th grader at RMS and a 4th grader at Cherokee. That being said, it seems like I'm the only one who will have children. It's not really a reason to vote for me. What you should do is consider the balance of the board. And it's really good, I believe, to have a board that has some members that don't have children and some members that do have children, because everybody then has different views on things.
Thank you very much. Mr. Warshaw, you're leading off. You ready?
I was never a lead-off hitter, but go ahead.
Okay. Today's the day.
Let's do it.
So for those who have close friends and relatives or wives, how would you handle voting on things like contracts and tenure?
You mean close to me? Friends?
Anyone? I repeat the question as they're given to me. These are not my questions.
Okay.
For those who have close friends and relatives, wives, how would you handle voting on things like contracts and tenure?
They said how I handle
Are you
life.
assuming that they work here? Is that what
I'm
you're
not assuming anything. I am reading the question as is. I will not interpret the question.
I'm going to assume that the question is meant as if I had somebody, a friend or somebody in the development that had a friend that was working here, and how I handled tenure for that individual.
Okay.
Truth of the matter is, I'm not about to do favors for anybody. I really don't want to do anything for any. I just want to do the best I can for this school district moving forward. And that's really what I'm about. It's not about favors. If you like me for who I am. That's it. That's really what I'm going to be about. And I feel it's worked my whole life, and it's not about to change.
Thank you. Would you like to repeat the question? For those who have close friends and relatives, wives, how would you handle voting on things like contracts and tenure?
basically feel the same way. Tenure should be earned, and it shouldn't be for who you know, how long you've been in the district. It should be what you produced in your job and how you've maintained your position.
Thank you. Mr. Ferriaoli?
The tenure issue is really simple for me. The tenure issue is based on what a recommendation from administration comes from. I don't observe teachers. I'm not in buildings seeing what teachers are doing, so if a superintendent comes to us and says, this is the person we're recommending for tenure, that's good enough for me. I trust in the administration. As far as contracts and other situations where you might have somebody personally you know, I would hope that anybody would recuse themselves. In the past, to give you a very simple, I can't give you details, but we had a parent who, my son knew their child, and we were discussing it, and I recused myself and left the room because I didn't think it was appropriate that I was there for that.
Thank you. Ms. Panico, would you like me to repeat it?
No,
Okay.
I don't have any friends. Actually, I've talked about this many times. I don't have any friends, relatives that work in the district. I have people that I know that I've gone out to the diner with and had coffee with, probably half the people in this room that I've had coffee with. That doesn't mean that I'm being invited to their house for dinner every night and that we're really close friends. So I would have no conflict of interest at all if I was on the board and had to vote for a tenure situation. With that being said, I don't always believe that administration is their recommendation should be gold. I think that we as a board should look into everything if we're going to vote on a tenure situation or a raise for that matter.
Thank you. Mr. Hochstein, we'll start off with you.
Great.
This is lengthy. Are you ready?
Oh, God.
Oh, they can write that down.
Something often overlooked is that elected officials represent their constituencies, more so than their own interests and philosophies. With that in mind, what do you think your constituents want to see from the BOE in the next year?
I think that they would want to see balance, a peaceful board that can disagree and agree at the same time without getting volatile. I think they will see the tax rate worked on to try and keep it as low as possible. This year's tax rate is great, but as you know, other things and other items go up, and having a tax rate of a zero increase is not something that will last forever.
Thank you.
Can you repeat that, though?
I will repeat it several times, Mr. Ferriaoli.
I think that people are looking to see some of what Mr. Hochstein talked about, a little more cohesiveness on the board. I think that, and I myself would like to see that. I think that people are definitely looking for their taxes to stay down around the zero mark, the zero tax levy that we were able to produce this year. That's always a plus. I think that they're looking for some changes, possibly in some grading policies, which are coming in September. I know people are asking for more. We have put something in place for September. Hopefully that will stand and we'll be able to see how that works before we make more changes. And I would just hope that everybody wants to see everybody kind of get along and go back to a more cohesive Connect Bot, which is really why I started doing this in the first place, one of the things, and that doesn't seem to be.
Excellent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mrs. Panico, would you like me to repeat this?
I'll let you repeat it. Yes,
Okay.
I'll let you repeat it so that Mark can get a second chance at it as well.
It's lengthy.
It is.
Something often overlooked is that elected officials represent their constituencies. I should say constituents, but more than their own interests and
rephrase the question
philosophies.
to make it proper.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for letting me do that. My
Yes, of
students
course you can.
they're cringing and that's how they feel my team.
Can you explain
You can
it?
kind of combine questions.
Okay. With that in mind, what do you think of your constituents want to see from the BOE in the next year?
People have reached out to me many times. I was part of an anonymous group that I am no longer part of, but they did reach out to me many times with their concerns so that they didn't have to say it out loud. They were worried about retribution, which is a big issue in our district. I also agree that you can have a board that can have productive arguments. I'm on a 9-member board right now. Terry McNamee will tell you. We don't agree on a lot of things, and we have productive arguments, and we come to a resolution. We also have a big opt-out population here, and we need to make things better for them. There's a whole list that I have from people that have talked to me over the last 2-3 years that I think we need to work on. It's a huge list.
Excellent, thank you. All right, Mr. Warshaw, I'm going to repeat the question and I will help you through it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. So it's lengthy. Ready? Something often overlooked is that elected officials represent their constituents more so than their own interests and philosophies. With that in mind, what do you think your constituents want to see from the BOE in the next new year?
You want my ideas is basically what you're asking for, what I think, what's going on. And I think one of the most important things is the atmosphere in the school and with the board. It's got to be more together. Everybody's got to be working together. And it's got to be balanced. There's got to be respect. You know, respect is such an important thing. And I think we've lost a lot of that. To me, respect is one of the utmost important things. My mama always told me respect no matter what. And that's one of the things I really thrive myself on. And basically listening to other people without rebuttaling first. I actually try to listen. A lot of times people want to rebuttal so quick without listening. Listen to what the other person says. And I think we can work together and make this a more loving environment. And make things good in life for everybody. It's me.
Thank you. Mr. Ferriaoli, we'll start with you. It says, please pick two and compare. What type of relationship should be between administration and central office, Board of Education trustees, bargaining units, parents, students, community, New York State Education Department, administration, especially on the building level? Again, please pick two and compare and discuss what type of relationship should be between those two.
Okay. Wow. Can you just say the groups again?
Of course. Administration, meaning central office.
Correct.
Board of Education trustees, bargaining units, parents, students, community, New York State Education Department, administration, building level.
Okay, so we'll start with the BOE and bargaining units. Seems to be a hot topic around here. I've been right in the middle of it. I'd like to see that relationship better. Unfortunately, it is important that there is a relationship that works but is not compromised by BOE members sharing information that should not be shared. As far as students, BOE and our regents and legislators and things like that, I think it's really important that we're working together, we're constantly talking, communication, discussing different educational philosophies, the APPR, all those things that are affecting our schools. If you're not talking to them, they're never going to hear what you have to say, and they're just going to bulldoze over what they want to do. So it's important to have that relationship.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Panico.
Give me that list again, girl.
You want it?
Yes, please.
Administration, meaning central office, Board of Education trustees, bargaining units, parents, students, community, New York State Education Department, administration, meaning the building level.
I think the most important relationships are the students. And no matter who you pair them with, we have to put the students first. If you're on the Board of Ed, you always have to ask, does this help or hinder kids? If you're the central office administration, you have to ask, does this help or hinder kids? If you are a building level administrator, you have to ask, does this help or hinder? For every other stakeholder in there, we have to ask, does it help or hinder kids? And make our decisions going forward based on that. So for all those groups, I would compare them with children and make sure that they ask that question before doing anything.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw.
Repeat that, please.
You got it.
Can you explain it to me also?
There's a list.
Sure. Don't stress. That's what I do for a living.
I'm good. Perfect.
You can ask these guys. I'm good at it.
I'm feeling the love.
Highly effective, right, kids?
Send it
Say
my
it.
way.
Okay. All right. So you're going to pick two of the following groups, and you're going to discuss what type of relationship you believe should be between the two. What the relationship should be.
So just two, and I can compare what I believe should be accepted to both
Yes.
of them. Okay.
And now I'm going to list the groups. Administration, meaning central office. Board of Education trustees, bargaining units, parents, students, the community, New York State Education Department, and administration, meaning the building level. So you're going to compare and discuss the relationship that should be between two of those groups.
Gotcha. I'm going to use the Board of Education and the parents, even though I believe students definitely are the most important thing here. But parents, I will make myself accessible. I will be around because I like to be around. My business is right up the road from here. And those of you that know me, know you can come talk to me anytime about anything. You may not like the answers like I've said before, but I will give you the truth. And we will work together if you think there's something wrong that we need to correct with your kid or child, or if you're a young child that's becoming a man and getting ready to graduate, or your girl. I will be there and I will give my input. Doesn't mean I'm right, but I will be there to help. And I will take input from you at all times also. I will listen and listen and listen. And then I will make assessments and judgments, and I'll talk to you about them.
Thank you. Mr. Hochstein? You ready? So please pick two to compare and discuss the type of relationship that you believe should be between the two. Administration at the central office level, Board of Education trustees, bargaining units, parents, students, the community, the New York State Education Department, and administration on the building level. Please pick two and compare them accordingly. What you believe the relationship should be.
I believe the relationship between the board and the community should be as cohesive as possible. I believe the information that's given at board meetings sometimes is not explained properly, gives people a different or the wrong impression. I've seen that happen before, and that's right.
Thank you, sir. Next question.
Can we get a break during this?
You want a break? They want a break.
It's only been a half an hour.
Really?
We've got a whole nother hour and a half to go.
The
Okay.
candidates
No,
have
no,
become
no.
a bargaining unit.
I'm just asking.
Candidates have
My
become a
legs,
bargaining
I'm
unit.
I'm used to walking around a little bit, but I'm good. I don't want to be
You
rude.
can stand.
I don't like to be.
You
no,
can
I'm
pace.
good.
Okay.
Good.
Don't-
I might stand there.
I'm not stressed. We're good.
Are you ready?
You want to do one?
So the question after this, everybody has to stand when they answer. How's that?
Okay,
Okay.
I'll stand up.
You want to stand now?
Terry McNamee, huh? I love it.
Mrs. Panico, please identify any relationship you have with a unit or personnel in this district. If you have a relationship with someone, how can you ensure the voters that you will not succumb to their pressure? Please first identify the relationship you have with that individual or unit.
Again, as I said, I've probably gone out to the diner with about half of the people here. Does that constitute a relationship? No, it's a community thing. I go out and I socialize with everyone in the community. I have no problem having a cup of coffee with anybody. You want to go out for a cup of coffee after this? We can do that. I have no problem with that. You shouldn't be drinking coffee. I don't have any relationship with any specific member of any bargaining unit or any I don't know, I don't have a relationship with anyone like that. I have a social relationship with everyone in our community. I believe everyone's voice should be heard, no matter where they're from.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw.
Stand up.
Do I have to? Okay. We're good?
We're good, sir. You ready?
Can you repeat the question?
Yes. Please identify any relationship you have with a unit or personnel in this district. If you have a relationship, how can you ensure the voters that you will not succumb to their pressure? Again, please identify any relationship you have with a unit or personnel in this district.
Well, I have my better half works for the bus company, and really my pressure, I don't think it's pressure. I'm here because I want to be here. This is me. I was coaching football for 15, 20 years, and that's what I wanted to do. My next step is here. This is where I want to be. There's no pressure. The pressure is what I put on myself. To be honest with you, I'm going to make the decisions that's right for the district. That's right for the people here. That's who I am. That's what I stand by.
Thank you. Mr. Hochstein, would you like me to repeat the question? Please identify any relationship you have with a unit or personnel in this district. If yes, how can you ensure to the voters that you will not succumb to their pressure? Again, please identify any relationship you have with a unit or personnel in this district.
Well, my better half does work for the district. She works at the high school. I don't believe in being pressured into anything. I have my own mind. I know that things that are spoken about at the board, in the Board of Education, during meetings, and in closed session are not to be spoken about, period, except for the board meetings. So I don't have any issue with that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ferriaoli.
I do not have any relationships with any personnel in the district. That being said, I do agree with Mr. Warshaw. You do put pressure on yourself, but you also do stand to benefit from a contract negotiation if you have someone that works in the district because they are receiving a salary. So that being said, I think that's a difficult thing, and I think that's more than pressure. You have to either recuse yourself or really be careful about what you're doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Hochstein. Are you ready? No. You're either.
The long one?
I'm trying to make them as grammatically correct as
I think
possible.
you're on Mr. Warshaw.
Yeah.
I know.
Yes.
It's,
I'm leaning off
I'm
again.
proofreading as I go. Are you ready?
Yeah,
Every
okay.
fourth one you're reading on.
I know that. I'm good with it.
Do any of you have a lawsuit against Connecticut at this present time?
Is that the question?
That's the question. So do you, I would answer only on behalf of yourself, do you have a lawsuit against Connecticut at this present time?
Yes.
You can elaborate or not elaborate. I only have the question, sir.
Yes. That's my attorney's handling that. If I really get into it,
No, I'm not.
no, okay.
Believe me.
It's fine.
No
Fine.
worries. Whatever
I'm
you're
fine
comfortable with.
I'm comfortable with anything. You can fit in my own skin.
Thank you, sir.
No problem.
Mr. Hochstein,
Yes, ma'am.
do any of you, that's how they worded it, but more specifically, do you have a lawsuit against Connecticut at the present time?
I do not.
Thank you.
No, I do not.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Panico.
If this air conditioner doesn't go on at night, no, I do.
Thank you. Are you ready, sir? Mr. Hochstein, what ideas do you have to hold teachers accountable to ensure that our children are being properly educated?
Well, I don't really have any ideas, but I think that having the administration of the building, checking and seeing how the teachers are teaching in each classroom works fairly well. At least the principal with the choice to make whether they're not that person should be spoken to or if that person should be kept.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ferriaoli?
My major idea would be, first of all, for everybody in New York State to get to be able to rewrite APPR at the local level with involvement of not only the teachers' unions, but all personnel, parents as well, so that we have some accountability that's real in the classroom. Unfortunately, what we have now is a system that is designed to hurt schools, hurt children, hurt teachers, so I'm not in favor of that. So as far as accountability for teachers, I think we should have a new APPR system which has all those parties involved, come up with that system.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mrs. Panico?
Can you just repeat that one more time, please?
Yes, ma'am. What ideas do you have to hold teachers accountable to ensure that our children are being properly educated?
I think our Connecticut teachers do a fabulous job now. I think local control is very important. I believe that New York State Department of Education is trying to take away that local control. But I feel that we as a district, we are lacking in certain things, but I feel that if we change it just a little bit, where parents, students, administrators, supervisors were all part of the process, I think we would get a better feel for who is a good teacher, who is not a good teacher, and go from there. I don't believe that New York State Ed can do that by giving a kid a standardized test. I could fill in any bubbles too. I'm good at that. I
Thank
can color
you.
in the lines.
Mr. Warshaw? What ideas do you have to hold teachers accountable to ensure that our children are being properly educated?
I think what's important is a growth program. So in other words, you would look at a student when he goes into a classroom and see where he's at. And when he's done with that classroom, see where he's at. So a growth program, in other words, where he went into that school year, if it was a smart student, A student, and he came out a B, okay? If he went in as a C and he comes out as an A, or if he's in a gym class and he can't make any free throws, and all of a sudden at the end of the year he's draining them, I mean, that means the teacher's working with them. So it's like coaching. So it's like anything else. It's a growth program, and make yourself accessible. I mean, another thing I would think about is also have maybe an expert, maybe observe, and I don't know who the experts are. That's one thing I don't know. I'm sure there's expertise in observing. Maybe have them observe and watch what's going on. That's my opinion. And I would also ask around for other ideas because I'm not an expert on this.
Thank you.
Well,
Mr. Ferriaoli?
It's a new question, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, go ahead.
Identify one aspect of current district procedure or practice that is in need of improvement or restructuring.
Say that.
Yeah, one more time, can you read the question?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Identify one aspect of current district procedure or practice that is in need of improvement or restructuring.
I think that our current budget that we have for the clubs has continued to increase, which I like to see, but I think it's really important that we have accountability in the clubs and that we make sure that children are attending. And if not, then we need to get new clubs in there. I'm not looking to decrease the budget, but I want to make sure that there are clubs available for the children that they want to be in. Sometimes we have old clubs and they kind of only have a couple kids, and that's a process we've talked about on the board, and I still don't think is quite where it needs to be, so I'd like to see that corrected.
Thank you. Mrs. Panico?
So one aspect that procedures or practice need improvement, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I think first and foremost, our hiring committees need improvement. I sat on a few hiring committees and I felt that the outcome was already predetermined. That bothered me a lot. Another policy that I never knew about was the attendance policy until my husband became ill and my daughter was at the attendance policy. I think that procedure, first of all, we need to find where that procedure is. I have no idea. I've asked a million times. But that needs improvement as well. And it needs to be written so that parents can access these procedures and see them. Right now, they're just in some far-off land. Nobody knows what they are. They're not policy, they're procedure. They need to be accessible to the parents.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw, would you like me to repeat it?
yeah, go ahead,
Okay.
please.
No worries.
Thank you.
Identify one aspect of current district procedure or practice that is in need of improvement or restructuring.
I'd have to answer that question, I'd have to be on the inside and know exactly what's going on at all times. From the outside looking in, what I think needs new structure, obviously, is the border that we need new blood. We need a little bit more working together and respect for one another, and that's the one thing that I see. I'm not inside the school to really notice and note and have the privy of having the knowledge of some of the stuff that's in there. Once I am in there, I will know, and we will work on it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hochstein, please identify one aspect of current district procedure or practice that is in need of improvement or restructuring.
Right now, honestly, I have not been involved with the district for the last year or two, so I wouldn't really be able to answer that question and tell you what was needed restructuring at this point.
Sure.
I would like to be able to do that as a board member. Then you would have the information.
Thank you. Good. Are we ready?
Oh, me? Sure.
No, we're Mr. Warshaw. You lead off, correct?
No, I just done the last question.
Yeah, I thought it was like,
Forgive me.
It's Eileen.
You'll forgive me.
Thank you.
You're
Are you
welcome.
ready, sir?
No, it's Eileen.
That was me.
I started the last question.
stop
Okay.
trying to skip me.
I am honestly looking at the questions that keep coming in. This is exciting here. How would you handle bullying in our schools, Mrs. Panico?
I beat everyone up. No, I'm just kidding.
No, you cannot say
I'm
that.
kidding. Bullying in our school is a big issue. It doesn't end I don't know if there is a solution right now. We've tried a number of different things. We've tried apps. We've tried the bully box in the elementary school. It is a very difficult thing because of social media. I think it has to be a partnership between the parents and the school district. It can't just be done by one or the other. I think we need to know what our children are doing online. We need to be aware of that. We need to report it to the school as parents and not put our children in those positions because snitches get stitches. So we need to have oversight as parents and we need to be vigilant.
Thank you, Mrs. Panico. Mr. Warshaw, how would you handle bullying in our schools?
Those of you who know me, I've been coaching for a while. I'm against bullying. I talk about it with my players. And I would make sure that there's meetings and a seminar, where you have somebody that was talking to the children and explaining it to them. Bullying is not something you should be proud of. Put yourself in that other person's shoes and make sure you're aware of what you're doing before you do it. And I feel like I've reached a lot of people that way. And I've been plenty of times when I've stopped bullying, and I'm totally against it. It's a no-no. And that's what I would do. I would try to be a part of it. I would reach out and get myself right in there with it if I could, if I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hochstein, how would you handle bullying in our schools?
I think that the parents really are prime as far as the social media goes. I think that a lot of students have a free range and a free hand of looking at and talking to each other through social media. I think the parents need to get more involved, need to explain to the kids about bullying, and the district needs to also have some type of a continuing class, in groups to explain the situation.
Excellent.
I think that bullying is a very difficult thing nowadays, especially with social media. What I'd like to see is, I think a really important part of anti-bullying is kids hearing from other kids. You can only listen to adults so long, you can only listen to your teacher so long. Kids tend to want to hear a different voice, and I've really found that at my level anyway, that different voice is coming from the children. So I'd like to find a way that maybe we can get some more money to the anti-bullying club, and maybe they can put together a skit or a presentation for not only the high school, but maybe for other buildings in the district. I think that's really the answer. Or possibly bring in some outside programs from the police departments. They have free programs. Because it's just a different voice, and hearing a different voice is really what kids want to hear. They're done listening, sometimes to their parents, sometimes to the adults in the building, so it's important to show them that there are other people that have dealt with it that can give them answers.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Warshaw, you're next. If Nico is correct, he's now monitoring
Nico,
this.
you're on your game, Nico.
Thank you, sir.
Attaboy.
If anyone submits any more questions, he's going to be in charge.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on implementing a community service initiative into the high school graduation requirements?
Can you elaborate on that?
So, what do you think about having community service be a part of graduation requirements?
Okay, what do I think? That's a tough one. I think it's great community service because it's always helpful to the child. My kid does community service. So I think maybe a certain amount of hours would probably benefit the child, so I would be for it. Because if I'm all about the children, I'm about doing what I think is good for them and learning what's really good. And what matters is doing things for other people. And I think that really means a lot in life. So, you gotta learn how to give. And as I always explain to people, you gotta give. And when you give, life's okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
Mr. Hochstein, what are your thoughts on implementing a community service initiative into the high school graduation requirements?
I think community service is very important. I myself had my children go through that. It instills responsibility, which is something that's lacking a lot of these days. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay. You were saying it's lacking a lot of days. Okay.
As far as it becoming a requirement for graduation, I don't think that it should be.
Thank you. Mr. Ferriaoli?
I don't have a problem with it being a requirement for graduation as long as it is done properly. It needs to be, set up so a child can achieve that. And if they don't have the ability to do it outside of the school, I think, needs to provide opportunities for that child to do it so that everybody can accomplish what they're looking for. The difficult part is tracking all of that. But as long as you set up opportunities for each child to get involved in school and count the hours that they're donating at school, then to me that's community service. Giving back to anything is community service. So I think all kids should be doing it. I think that every college is looking to require it, so it's not something you can get around. It's not something, I think probably every kid by the time they graduate is going to have enough hours to meet the requirements that they're talking about. So as long as it's done right with the opportunities so every kid can succeed, I don't have an issue.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Panico?
I'm a volunteer. My mother was a volunteer. I learned through my parents. I volunteer because I want to volunteer, not because I'm mandated to volunteer. So I have an issue with the word mandate. If children want to earn community service, I love it. I encourage all children to do that. To make it a mandate, I'm a little bit against. There are children in situations that cannot do it. They can't. They have sick mothers at home, other children that they have to watch. In school, they're taking a full schedule. It's not always possible for every child to be able to volunteer. So to mandate it, I am not for, but I would encourage it.
Thank you. Mr. Hochstein, I believe you lead off. Do you think you should always trust an administrator's recommendation and vote for it?
No. I do not believe that you should trust the administrators. I think that there are a lot of things involved that you need to have the information from other sources besides just the administrator to make a logical decision.
Thank you. Mr. Ferriaoli?
I think it depends on the situation. I think if you are dealing with a outside issue that you can gain outside research on, then yes, you should do that research and you should make the best informed decision you can along with what administration is providing you. If you're dealing with an issue that's solely based in the school and you are a working individual or you are not in the school, then unfortunately that's the only information you have and you have to put certain trust in the people you hire. That is the Board of Education's job. We are an oversight committee. We hire the people that are supposed to run the district. I'm not the CEO. I'm the board. The CEO is our superintendent. It's her job to make sure that things are running smoothly. So you have to put some trust in that because you're not available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to see what's going on in every building. You're just not.
Thank you. Mrs. Panico, do you think you should always trust the administrator's recommendation and vote for it?
No, I'm going to disagree with Nick. I believe that the Board of Ed's job is to oversee what everyone's doing. Just because an administrator says that it's okay, it doesn't mean that it always is. You need to get the outside information that you can. If it's an internal thing, there are people that you can talk to. You can, if it's about a teacher, you can bring in the teachers' union, ask their opinion. There's a lot of different ways to evaluate things, and just because an administrator says this is what should happen, doesn't always mean that it's the right thing to do. It may be their agenda and not good for the kids. Again, the question comes in, does it help kids or hinder kids? And that should be asked first and foremost. We are the CEO of the board. The Board of Education directs everything that goes on in this district. We should be overseeing all of that. We shouldn't just trust everyone. And again, in this climate lately, there is no trust. It's been eroded. So we need to bring that back first.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw?
Trust, strong word. Can you repeat that question?
Yes, sure. Do you think you should always trust an administrator's recommendation and vote for it?
Absolutely not. I will always listen, and I'll listen, but I've been taught to always investigate and look and see what the person's telling me, and investigate it and make sure it's accurate. We all can make mistakes. Anybody that gives an answer is never 100% sure. There's always a little doubt, and I will always be the one that looks into it and try to make sure what they're saying is accurate, because you know what? It's important that it is. One mistake can lead to a whole bunch of other mistakes, and I don't believe we need that to happen. So I'm going to make sure I listen and see what's going on.
Mr. Ferriaoli, this is a similar question. What is the ideal relationship between a school board member and the superintendent?
The ideal relationship would be a lot of communication. Them giving you as much information as possible when relevant. Trying to filter out some information that may not be relevant so you can make the best educated decision. But it's also, your job to, like I said, if you're not involved in the situation, you have to have some level of trust. If you can find out other information, which is what I said earlier, not having blind trust, you should find that information out. So sometimes you do have to question what they did.
Mrs. Panico, what is the ideal relationship between a school board member and the superintendent?
The school board is the superintendent's boss. That's the relationship. The superintendent carries out what the board tells the superintendent to do. How the superintendent carries it out, there's a lot of latitude given. But the board directs the superintendent. That's the relationship. That's how it should be.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw.
What's really, really important is respect. You have respect of each other, and you guys can respect each other when you're working together. That goes a long way, because then you listen to each other's ideas without butting. So you respect each other and you listen, you communicate well together. Communication is very important. So communication and respect, and then what happens is you can make it, you're working together, and you're basically working for everything to work the right way for the district. And to me, the kids, the community, teachers, everybody, that's what it's all about, making it work.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hochstein, what is the ideal relationship between a school board member and the superintendent?
Well, I think there has to be trust and communication. There are variable sides to everything, and be able to make an informed decision between the superintendent and the board member. Just needs to be a lot of trust and communication.
Thank you, sir. Are you ready?
Is it my turn?
Yes. What are the BOE outcomes?
I was actually just thinking of that. Can we take a 5-minute break?
Oh, beautiful.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
I would love a five.
Because it's been
High
an
five.
hour. We've
Yes.
gone through 16 questions, and we're back to the front, so it's kind of
Yeah.
a good,
It's appropriate.
Good time?
a
Back to the
5-minute
front.
break.
5-minute break.
All
I'm
right.
not sure how many more
Go to
questions
Lisa.
we have, but
We have-
we have a ton more. We're only going to go for about another 45 minutes, that's it.
Okay, I'm going to Lisa.
So it's a good
Can I go
time.
put on a pair of sweats?
Hold on, I'm going to turn
Yeah,
that.
maybe we can all vote.
Oh, jeez.
I heard it's good, right?
You're not on it.
Everyone died.
You're on now.
Welcome back.
Back to the questions.
Yes, I
Back to the
believe we're on
future.
Mrs. Panico. Question number 17.
Hi, Mrs. Panico.
Hello.
What is your view on the district's current recess and physical activity policies so that students can let off steam?
I like that we added in for the elementary schools. I'm not sure if it went up to middle school yet, but I know that we added it in at the elementary level. I think physical education, there's studies that prove that if you take 5 minutes of a class and you do a little exercise, the kids learn better. I think we could do more. I think we've gotten off to a good start with the 10 extra minutes for the elementary levels, but we could do more.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Warshaw, what is your view on the district's current recess and physical activity policies so that students can let off steam?
I know they added the 10 minutes, I think it was.
I think it's 10 minutes.
Okay. I think it's really important. I think it's important for children to be able to communicate with each other and even correlate and play sports, whatever they do in their recess. I love the technology, but I know there's a lot of technology. The kids love playing with their phones and stuff, but recess is a time to communicate and use your marketing skills. I think it's important that you learn how to communicate with people, look in their eye, communicate. Like I always tell everybody, you got to make sure you know what's going on, you want to see. So that period, I always tell my son to make sure he's learning and he's listening and he's communicating. So it's very important. I think it's great. I think it's great for the school.
Thank you. Mr. Hochstein, what is your view on the district's current recess and physical activity policies so that students can let off steam?
Well, I think that having that policy is a good idea. I was not familiar with that until the question was asked. But having a recess, an increase in recess, I think is good for the kids. Like I said, it blows off steam, gives them an opportunity to see each other, break down the day a little bit. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ferriaoli.
Well, I guess my current policy is the current policy because I voted for it. But that 10 minutes I think was important to increase the elementary level. I'd like to see more at the middle school level. Unfortunately, it's difficult because of the time periods, and when you're dealing with periods, everything's kind of structured, so that's difficult. That being said, though, I would definitely think that I'd like to see administration encourage the younger teachers, K1, 2, 3, to try to get outside more, even not in the recess period. I remember when I was younger, and I think it's really important, the role of play. You know, your teacher would, in the afternoon, we had 20 minutes at the end of the day, they'd take you outside, and they'd increase that recess time. So it doesn't necessarily have to be in a structured period that the district provides, but encouragement from principals to the young, especially the younger grades. You know, 4 or 5, they're a little more of a workload, but that K1, 2, 3, those kids should be engaged in activities, playing, so that they're interacting with each other, using those personal skills. So that's really important. I'm agreeing with the time.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Mr. Warshaw.
Yes.
Should teachers be held to the same disciplinary actions as the students as it pertains to things like drinking, drugs, profanity, etc.?
Exactly what are you asking me?
I believe what the question is asking is, should teachers be held accountable for their behaviors in the same respect that students are?
Well, the students, I'm assuming, are disciplined. You're not saying what's going on with the students, what happens when they
Right.
get caught.
In the same fashion that they are held accountable or they are disciplined?
At home or in the school?
In the school, should the educators be held accountable and disciplined accordingly?
Most definitely. You got to be accountable for what you do in life. That goes with anything in life. So, without a doubt, you're accountable for your actions and what you do. So if a teacher does do something wrong, you got to be held accountable. And you got to stand up for what you did wrong and learn how to apologize for it if you did do something wrong and move forward. You know, in life you get knocked down. Well, when you get knocked down, sometimes you make a mistake. It's what you do after. You got to get back up, and you got to know you did something wrong and move forward. And that's what I think is very important.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hochstein. Should teachers be held to the same disciplinary action as the students as it pertains to things like drinking, drugs, and profanity?
I think that they should be held accountable for the same things that the students are accountable for. You can't teach somebody to do something if you don't do it yourself. If you have to be in the same position as they are. If a teacher does something wrong, it should be held accountable the same as a student.
Thank you. Mr. Ferriaoli.
Absolutely. Teachers are role models, but it's not only teachers, I think it's all staff. You know, we have tons of people that our children interact with every day, and all of those people should be held to the same standard. You have a responsibility to interact with children in an appropriate way, and I think that falls on anybody that works for the school district.
Thank you, sir.
I've always said that. I've always been outspoken at Board of Ed meetings, that if we want to see our children behave, we have to behave. With that being said, though, our children have a code of conduct that they follow, and our teachers and other staff have their contracts that they have to follow. So although in a perfect world, everyone would be accountable the same, contracts for teachers or staff would be different than our code of conduct for children. Each one should have a punishment for their behavior, but you have to follow the law and the guidelines that you voted on. We all do have to be role models. If we can't be, we have to follow that contract, that code of conduct contract that you guys signed, and you have to work out your punishment that way.
Thank you. Mr. Hochstein. In your opinion, what is the role of the Teachers Association or union?
Well, I think that the role for the teachers union is basically the role of any members want to be treated fairly. They want to be compensated fairly. They want to be able to negotiate. They want to be able to take care of issues if there's an issue that comes up. That's really what I think.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ferriaoli.
Their job is to advocate for their teachers. So they're going to put forth every effort that they can to make sure that their teachers are being treated fairly and, getting everything that's in their contract. That being said, I do believe that there is an expectation amongst all teachers that you go above and beyond what your contract says and you consider what the children need as well. So that's a really important piece. I know that I do it in my district. I'd like to see more of it here.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Panico.
I've said this to the president of the teachers union. I may not always agree with him because my priority is the children and his job is to fight for his teachers. He does his job well and I commend him for that. Sometimes it doesn't always work cohesively the way you would want it to. They have to do their job. I've always said this, if you don't like what's in the contract, as a board, you negotiate and you change it. But until it's changed, you have to follow the contract.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw.
Can you say it again?
In your
Sorry.
opinion, what is the role of the Teachers Association or Teachers Union?
Teachers union, as with any union, I would think, they want to be treated as fairly as possible. They want to get as much as they can within reason for their workers. So with that said, they're going to try to do what they can within reason and do as best as they can for their colleagues and the teachers in the district. I think what you need to make sure you separate is you can't let them control you. You just have to understand that you're listening and you have to make good decisions for this district, and that's what's important, and make sure that the kids ultimately is what we're doing the best for, along with the teachers, the administration, the parents, and everybody together, working together.
Thank you. Mr. Ferriaoli. And this really doesn't pertain to you, but you'll find it interesting. For those of you who don't or haven't regularly attended Board of Ed meetings, how do you plan to bring yourself current with the issues and decisions that a board member would be responsible for, since you're on the board?
Well, obviously, like you said, it didn't pertain to me, but when I was running the first time, I'd only been to a couple of board meetings prior to the year before I was running. So I decided once I really wanted to get involved, I needed to put my, money where my mouth was, as they so to say. And I started attending board meetings regularly leading up to the election. So the previous year before being elected, I probably went to 6 or 7 of them to find out what was going on, find out what the processes were, and move forward from there.
Excellent. Thank you. Mrs. Panico. For individuals who do not or haven't attended regularly attended BOE meetings, how do you plan to bring yourself current with the issues and decisions that a board member would be responsible for making?
I have been to more board meetings than probably all 3 of these gentlemen combined. I think the only one that I have not been to more meetings than is Lee Kennedy. So I don't think that question actually pertains to me.
Yes, I apologize.
Okay.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw.
Good.
So, if you haven't attended a board meeting regularly, or board meetings regularly, how do you plan to bring yourself current with the issues and decisions that a board member would be responsible for making?
Well, I've attended a few, more than a few, and I've watched some on video because you have video. Good job. And just like I've done the past few months or a couple of weeks, however long it's been, time flies actually, but I'll do my homework. I will do my homework and work my butt off. So I will be accessible. I will learn moving forward, and that's really what it's about. And I have the time with my one child getting ready to go to college and one son in the Army. I got to find something to do, and I'm not coaching, so why not do this? I'm loving it. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm humble, and I'm hoping I can get the position.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Mr. Hochstein. For those who don't or haven't regularly attended BOE meetings, how do you plan to bring yourself current with the issues and decisions that a board member would be responsible for making?
really would have to catch up on what's been going on in the district. I haven't been able to make a lot of the meetings. But it's a learning curve, and I would expect of myself that I would take that very seriously and catch up with what's going on. I've had the experience of going to many board meetings when I was an employee here. But that's what I would do.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Panico. What experience do you have with complicated budgets? When you are given a huge budget for the district, what will be your process to determine if this is a good budget?
I have a lot of experience with budgets. In my professional life before I became a professional volunteer, accounting and budgeting and bookkeeping was my profession. I've been on the budget advisory committee for many years. I think the last year I was on it, this current year, I think the 2 years prior was the only years that I had not been on the BAC. Before that, I had been on it. I know how to read the budgets. I question it constantly, watch any of my videos. I'm always asking about the money. So I have many, many, many years of experience doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw, what experience do you have with complicated budgets? When you are given a huge budget for the district, what will be your process to determine if this is a good budget?
I own a business for 20 plus years, I'm giving away my age, but I do own a business for 20 plus years, so I'm familiar with budgets and what it takes to make it so you're making money, which is important, and doing the right thing and spending your money correctly. With the school budget, I have to obviously do a lot of homework because it is bigger numbers, but I will take the time to look at what we're spending and why we're spending it and see if it's necessary. Get the input, because it's not what I say, it's really what the community says. So I'm going to ask the community, and I'm going to get a little help, and I know how to do numbers, but I'm going to get help on what we want to keep, what we think is necessary, and what we think we shouldn't be spending some money on.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hochstein, what experience do you have with complicated budgets? When you are given a huge budget for the district, what will be your process to determine if this is a good budget?
Well, during my tenure as Director of Facilities at the district, I was responsible for a fairly large budget. With that being said, we were also involved with bond construction. I was responsible for about $240 million worth of bond construction for the district. And then during that time frame, budgets were extremely important. You had to be budgeted for bidding purposes, and that's where my experience comes in.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Ferriaoli?
I have a business degree as well as my education degree. I have worked on a couple different budgets, much smaller scale. When I was much younger, I ran Hot Dog Little League as the vice president. I was involved in the budgeting there, purchasing equipment in that budget. I was also involved with my union and budgeting there. But I've gained tremendous amount of experience in the last 3 years about the budget, and fortunate for whoever gets on, we have a tremendous business director in Sharon Donnelly who will help anybody answer any questions. So she makes it very smooth and wonderful for anybody that has questions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Warshaw, what is your opinion as it pertains to current school policies regarding students with non-academic or educational special needs, behavioral needs? Perhaps they are students who have English as a second language. They are plagued by poverty, breakfast programs, or family problems, etc.
I think right now we do a good job with that, so I've asked questions about that. And, from what I understand, we're doing a good job with it. I would look into it more and see if we can do more. I believe in helping out as much as you can, and if I can do it, if there's a way to do it, I will do it as long as I get community backing. And I think that's something where if you got a heart, you're looking to help whoever you can, and that's really what it's about.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hochstein, would you like me to repeat the question? Sure. What is your opinion as it pertains to current school policies regarding students with non-academic, non-educational special needs? Perhaps they have behavioral needs, Maybe they are students who have English as a second language. Maybe they're plagued by poverty, part of the breakfast program, or have family problems, etc.
Well, I know that the district has had programs in place for these people.
Yes, sir.
I think that they need to follow these groups because times change and things change. And if more help is needed, the district needs to get involved and see what they can do and what they can't do.
Thank you. Mr. Ferriaoli?
I think if you're talking about non-academic and non, like behavioral issues and things like that, it's really important that you consider also how that affects the child academically. If that's spilling over into their academics, then it's really important that we provide them with the programs that they need to succeed academically. So those programs that we have in place are really important. They need to be funded. If that means an increase of mental health, which I think is a really important thing right now, that's affecting children and it's spilling over into their educational experience. Those are all things the district needs to look at carefully and make sure that we have enough of that to support all of our children with special needs.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Mrs. Panico?
I think we do a great job with special needs. I think we're a little lacking in behavioral and poverty needs of this district. I wasn't aware of some of these things until my own situation put me into some of these things, and I saw the deficiencies. We have some work to do. Again, our special needs kids, we do go above and beyond. The behavioral needs, we do punish and forget about it. I don't like that at all. And as far as poverty, again, there's policies in place, but the procedures are not clear, they're not concise, parents don't know about them. So I think we have some work to do with that.
Thank you. Mr. Hochstein? Which community groups are you currently a member of? Which of these groups are you actually active in?
Well, right now, at this point, I'm not active in any community groups, but I plan on obviously advancing myself in that and getting involved in some of the groups.
Thank you. Mr. Ferriaoli?
Well, obviously I'm active as a BOE member, but I'm also active in my kids' school PTAs, and I'm a coach in a local church where my family goes to church.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Panico?
I have a list. I'm active in the high school PTA. I am a member of SEPTA, but not active. I am active in my civic association. I'm active in school committees. I help out for not just the school committees through the district, but things like Relay for Life, Freshman Awareness. Ronkonkoma Visioning Implementation Committee I am active on. We also have a seat through my civic for the Lake Ronkonkoma Advisory Group. I'm also a member of, and I help clean up the lake for Lake Ronkonkoma Improvement Group. I'm also a BOE attendee constantly. I don't think I've missed a meeting, more than a dozen meetings. So I am very active in many different groups in our community.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw?
Can you just say it one more time, please? I'm sorry.
Sure. No worries.
Thanks.
Which community groups are you currently a member in? Which of those groups are you active in?
Over the past year, I've had a lot of health issues in my family, so I actually haven't been involved as much as I would have liked to. My mom passed away, my father had cancer, and my sister had brain damage. And I'm not looking for sympathy, I'm just letting you know what goes on in my family first. Took care of my family and was there when they needed me. But I also lost my job coaching football because they didn't want me there anymore, so that was something that was my heart and soul, and it actually was my heart. But I found this, and this is going to fill that void. I'm loving what I'm doing, I'm loving learning, and going forward, I'll explore many more things, and I will become what you want me to be, and who I am. I am who I am.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Mr. Ferriaoli? What would you like to see in place to improve the homeschool connection?
Homeschool connection.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure where they're going with this. I'm not sure if they're talking about homeschooling parents, homeschooling kids, or kids that are sent
Yeah.
home that are on suspension, and we have to make the connection with them. So
I
I'm
think
gonna
it's
go with
home
that.
and
I think it's
school.
home
Oh,
and
you mean
school.
home and the connection
I
between
have
home
to
and
see it.
school?
Yes, they didn't indicate.
Oh, okay, so we're talking about kind
Say
of
that
a
question.
parenting type of thing.
Yes.
I think it's important that parents are really involved. I think it's important that there's structure at home, which helps to keep structure in school. It makes it easier for our children to learn alongside other kids that have that structure. It makes it easier for our teachers to educate. So I think it's really important that there's communication, connection. I think it's important that teachers are, communicating what needs to go home or what's happening in the classroom. Grades are, really important. So that piece that parents know the expectations in a classroom are really important as well, and that's all part of communication. So there's got to be a working relationship between both. It doesn't work when one's doing it and the other one's not.
Thank you. Mrs. Panico.
If you're talking about it on the level that Nick just spoke about it, when it's teachers and children and homeschool connection, I think we have a great homeschool connection right now. I know that I can call up any one of my children's teacher, my child, I only have one left. I knew that I could always call up their teacher and we could have a discussion and that connection would be there. I called up when my husband was ill and I said, okay, this is what's going on with my daughter today. She's having a bad day, and the teachers were wonderful. So that connection, I think, is there. If you're talking about from the district's point of view, from the central administration, we talk about community a lot, but we don't actually use the community. We have a tremendous amount of free resources out in our community that we talk about how we involve the community, but we never really use those free resources that we could be doing. One of the things that I want to do if I get on the board is to include that community and really use them.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw?
You have to repeat that one for me.
No worries. What would you like to see in place to improve the connection between the home and the school?
I think it's really a lot to do with the structure at home that you develop at home as a parent. I know sometimes it's hard to be at home, but you need to provide a structure for your son or your daughter. So the structure you give them, you have to carry out and make sure they're doing it. That's most important, because I find out when you have structure, your child will do a little bit better, and it's up to you to really go forward and make sure they're doing that. And the parents have to be involved, and I think that's important. That's what I'm getting out of that question, what you're looking for, if I'm answering it wrong, because I don't fully understand the question. That's what I'm looking for, that's what I feel.
That's fine.
Okay.
Mr. Hochstein, what would you like to see in place to improve the home-school connection? Connection between the home and the school.
Well, in the past, I've known that the district has had a pretty decent program between the parents and the school district itself, with notifications, with these things that we have now in place, like getting phone calls, robocalls, and what have you, for information. But there could be more. There could be more done.
Thank you. Are we ready? Mrs. Panico, I believe you lead off.
Me first.
Again?
I'm ready.
Is that it?
In reference to a personnel hire, we've already addressed as to whether you should follow an administrator's suggestion. Should you follow an attorney's advice?
Say the question one more time, please.
I'm trying to word the question accordingly. In reference to a personnel hire, we've already discussed whether you should follow an administrator's suggestion. Should you follow an attorney, the district's attorney's advice?
Okay, I'm going to throw that question right out there and be totally transparent. We're talking about a baseball position. We're talking about, that question is talking about a baseball position that we had here as a perfect example. The position is supposed to be given according to the teacher's contract to a current teacher. It was not. I was very vocal at that point saying that we have to follow the law. Again, if you don't like it, you negotiate it out. But at that time, that was the law. That's what they had to do. They should have followed the attorney's advice. It cost us thousands of dollars in legal fees, and I disagree.
Mr. Warshaw,
Say that question again. I didn't know that's what they were taking to. So.
Don't worry.
Let me hear that question.
You can interpret it differently.
You can interpret it
Sure.
differently, that's how I interpret it.
In reference to a personnel hire, now we've already addressed on the stage as to whether you should follow an administrator's advice. Should you follow the district's attorney's advice?
If I was on the board, I would definitely always, like I said before, even with the superintendent, I'm gonna listen, but I'm gonna listen with the ear that's gonna investigate and make sure what they're saying is for the best interest for the school. And I'm also gonna make sure that we're following rules and laws. If he's telling me something that's a rule and it's a law, we're going with it. That's the rule. Unfortunately, the way it is in life, if you're a policeman and you got rules and laws, you're not supposed to do certain things. That's for them also. So it's for everybody. If you want to change something in life, change the rule. And then you can do different things. But I'm looking at like as if I'm going to listen to the attorney, but I'm also going to investigate it. But if it's a law, I'm going to follow what I believe is right. We're going to go, especially if it's going to cost money. I don't like spending money foolishly. I'm really against spending money when it's a waste. When we can give something back to the children, that's more important.
Thank you. Mr. Hochstein? In reference to a personnel hire, we've already discussed as to whether you should follow an administrator's advice. Should you follow the district's attorney's advice?
I would think you'd have to first examine what his advice is. Follow the laws as we've already set up here, and the contracts. If those are all in place and things are proper, I think that you have to take the lawyer's word that it's a good choice.
Thank you. Mr. Ferriaoli?
I think the attorney's advice is one piece of information that you gather throughout the process when you have to make decisions. And you have to look at all the evidence that you presented in front of you, and then you make the best judgment that you can.
Thank you. Mr. Warshaw?
Let's do it.
I believe this is the last question looking at the time, right? Did you say 25 or 35?
We did. We said 25.
Okay. We said 25.
Are you ready?
We're good. Last question. Go.
This position is an unpaid and thankless job. If you are working full-time, how will you make the time to commit to this position?
Can you repeat it, please?
You got it.
It's an unpaid position.
This position is an unpaid and thankless job. If you are working full-time, how will you make the time to commit to this position?
Okay, I have a business, so I'm a little flexible with my hours. I've already coached here for 17 years, and I did it for 17 years in the district, and I think 3 years of them were volunteer. I didn't get paid. And I did it because, like I told you before, it filled a void in my life. Gave me back a heart, and I went with it. So that's what I do, and that's really what I'm about. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Hochstein, this position is an unpaid and thankless job. If you are working full-time, how will you make the time to commit to this position?
Well, I'm lucky enough not to be working full-time. I am retired at this point, so I do have the time for the position. I'm actually looking forward to it. And that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Ferriaoli?
Well, luckily for me as an educator, I do have availability in the afternoon and the evenings to attend a lot of events. I can tell you the amount. I'd have to guess it somewhere over 150 events over the last 3 years that I've attended. As far as during the day, it's a little more difficult. I have done some events where I've taken some time off from work. We do get like 3 personal days, and I have chosen over the past couple of years to use those days to go to the NYSSBA convention to fight for our kids. I was the representative there for the board. So you got to find ways, and you got to make it happen. But it's a big time commitment. So I think I've fulfilled that role.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. Panico?
I'm a full-time volunteer. I'm around all the time. I'm always here. I'm always doing something with the kids. I'm always at the Board of Ed meetings. When my husband was in the hospital, I was at the Board of Ed meetings. I'm here. I have no problem with it.
Thank
I'm
you.
a masochist.
At this time, we will allow each candidate 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Earlier, we went from left to right. Now we will go from right to left. So, Mr. Ferriaoli?
Okay. I want to start by thanking everybody for coming out. I know it's important to commit your time. I want to thank the other candidates for coming out. I wish everybody good luck. I'm looking for the opportunity to continue doing what I was doing. I think we've made some great strides in the last 3 years here. I think we have, some ways to go, and I'd like to be part of that. I think our administration is committed to our children, and I would like to be a part of that moving forward. So I hope that when you go out on May 15th, you vote for the budget, which is a 0% increase, and you vote for me.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Hochstein?
Did you read the question again?
It's not really a question. You have the opportunity
Oh,
to
I'm
make
sorry.
a closing statement. That's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, I know. We're used to the pattern, right? Believe me, I know.
Yeah. No, just that I've been interested in this district since I started here in 1998, I believe. It's been my heart and soul. The position I had was a 7-day, 24-hour position. Everybody wanted to know if I had a hobby. My hobby was work. I have a vested interest as a taxpayer also in the district. And I'd like to see the district move forward. So I think that I could be a part of that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Warshaw?
I want the community to know most of all that I'm a passionate person. And I'm very passionate about assisting the children of Connecticut in learning and in growing as individuals. I'm excited about the prospect of being on the Board of Education and being able to serve the community where I've lived for the last 20 years. I promise, as you can see, I do wear my heart on my sleeve, and I promise to give you everything I got. I promise to work hard, and I think that's the biggest thing. That's a big asset I have. I will work hard, and I will give you what you want. And I think I can listen to everybody, and I will respect you. I believe respect and talking to people and communicating with individuals is important. I will not hate, because my mama told me don't hate. So mama, there's no reason to hate, it's wasted energy. So I will listen and make the best decisions that I know I can. And I will do the best I can for this community moving forward.
Thank you. Mrs. Panico?
I just want to say that I ran in 2016 and I wasn't successful, but I was one of the only candidates that continued to go to the Board of Ed meetings. If I'm not successful this time, I will still go to the Board of Ed meetings because I believe in doing the right thing. I believe in keeping our budget fiscally responsible. This is the first year that we have a 0% tax levy, not a 0% increase, but a 0% tax levy. It is still being increased by 2.92% in spending. I have no agenda except to do the right thing by the kids. You have to do the right thing because it is the right thing to do. That's my motto. I live by that, and I try to make everyone around me live by that. I love kids. I love hanging out with them, except for my own. Don't tell them I said that. We also need to fix the dysfunction that we've had in the board for the last 3 years. It needs to be fixed, and I think that we need a change. So I hope that you'll all vote for me. I hope that you'll, and if not, I'll still see you. I'll still be at the board meetings.
You're still going to be around.
I'm going to still be there.
Thank you. Everybody, thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight. I just want to remind everybody there's 5 votes on May 15th. Proposition 1 is the budget. Proposition 2 is the naming of the administration building.
Correct.
Proposition 3 is the increase the number of board members from 5 to 7. And your last 2 votes are for 2 of these people. There are 2 open seats. The 2 candidates with the most votes will get those 2 seats. There's not separate and distinct seats any longer. It's an at-large vote, which I think went through 3 years ago?
3 years ago.
3 years ago. This is the first time we're seeing this happen, so I'm kind of excited about that. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you
Thank you.
Putting it together.
for saying yes
Thank you for having
to
me.
run for the Board of Ed. Thank you very much.
Thank you.